All right, folks, welcome into another edition of the High School Huddle. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. Depending on when you listen to the thing, we might be into October. Fall is officially here. The high school sports season kicking into full gear. We're halfway through the regular season. We got a big show for you. We're going to debut our local football rankings. We're going to rank the big schools, the small schools. But before we do that, first, we got to talk about a different type of rankings. Specifically the college football coaches poll, where an interesting team has crept into the rankings there.
For all those who are watching on the video, the big S right there. Shout out to the Orangemen, all right? Happy that my Orange have gotten the respect that they deserve. They've gotten off to a fantastic start this season. Who knows how long we'll be up there, because we got a gauntlet. I mean, Wagner, Abai, and then a who's who coming up after that. So for right now, you'll take it, sell to the recruits. Hey, we're ranked, guys. Come to our but it's cool to see, especially up in New York, where it's not really a lot of major football teams. So to see a school in New York get some love like that is always cool to see. Yeah,
I mean, it's just Syracuse, it's the Ubi Bulls. Yeah. I think we should talk about it a little bit. If anybody didn't see what happened on Football Frenzy Saturday night, potentially a Mount Rushmore moment of Football Frenzy went down on Saturday.
Yeah, for some odd reason, I said instead of the UB Bulls, the Ubi Bulls. I don't know what that is. Never heard of it. Can't explain to y'all. Honestly, most times when you mess up on live television, you got an explanation as to why you said what you said or why you messed up. You're like, hey, I was thinking of this. I'm sorry, y'all. I have no idea. I was so excited to talk about Eastern Michigan's terrible football field, which is gray if you guys haven't seen it.
So ugly.
And in the midst of thinking of what I'm going to say about that, I just completely butchered UB's name. And thankfully, AJ manned the ship, because I've never.
Well, before I manned the ship, I jumped all over you and attacked you for that. In fact, actually, before we continue this conversation, let's slice that in right here.
The UB Bulls in action.
The what? The U Bulls?
The Buffalo Bulls were in action. Taking on Eastern Michigan on by far the ugliest field I've ever seen.
He was really looking forward to making fun of the field. We got the U Bulls.
It was just terrible.
All right, so you guys got to hear what happened. I heard the U Bulls at first. I don't even know what we said, but the U Bulls, the Ubi Bulls, and then after that, because I don't think we're gonna play this clip out all the way, we had the Yankees highlight after that. Carl is over in the corner, just like dying of laughter. Our floor director, Alan, bless his heart, he's at the anchor desk where the anchors sit. He can't contain himself. I see these guys laughing out of the corner of my eyes. Usually I do a good job of composing myself. I just kept going. Like, eventually we got it together. I literally have to tell Alan, like, Alan, you got to stop laughing. I can see you out of the corner of my eyes. Just go. I mean, it was hilarious. So I get it. He had to go to the side of the room, out of all of our views. Like I said, just a Mount Rushmore of football frenzy right there.
I apologize to anyone who was looking forward to those highlights, and if I butchered it, I apologize. I sincerely do. But that was a happening, and I can't even explain it. I'm happy that our sports director Thad was understanding, and he thought it was hilarious itself, because I have no explanation for it. But we'll put that in the Hall of Fame of bloopers, and we'll roll with it, man.
Yeah, so hopefully this week's show a little bit less incident free, but in some regards, that was probably the most fun I've ever had calling a highlight. So it goes both ways. But back to our main focus of the show, we are going to be debuting our local football our local football Section 5 rankings. We're going to rank our big schools, Class AA, and the A's, small schools being down. This ranking was compiled by the two of us compositely. This doesn't have, we didn't take coaches' votes, things like that, anything, other media members, just me and Carl. So if you have anybody to make gripes about, DM us, tag us, whatever, or just prove it out on the field. Because, a lot of these teams, as we went through this list, a little bit of a spoiler alert, a lot of these teams that are right next to each other, they're going to separate themselves real quick because they got some good games coming up. But we're going to start off with the big schools where, we don't really have to spend a whole lot of time to delay the inevitable. Number one is UPrep, 4-0.
Yeah, UPrep, they introduced themselves to AA real fast with a gauntlet of a schedule. taking down McQuaid and RH and convention, not RH, Victor, excuse me, in week 1. I think UPrep has put themselves at the top far and away.
Yeah, and we do mention that they are top of the front because they are the clear number ones just based on the result. But they're not beating these teams by 30 points. You know, they are grinding out close wins. They're coming up in the clutch. So while UPrep is certainly number one, honestly, even if they lose in the semifinals of the playoffs, you know, I wouldn't be stunned because as we're going to prove later on, there are like 5-6 teams that, you know, they can go toe to toe with just about anybody. Number 2 probably should come as no surprise either. It's McQuaid at 3-1, the 3-time defending sectional champs. Lost that close one to UPrep, where they lost their starting quarterback in that game. DeMarco is back, so good to see that. But McQuaid, you know, they're going to be right in this thing at the end of the year too.
Because of that quarterback, let's make that clear. That sophomore kid is legit. Will DeMarco has an older brother who's a receiver on the outside to help out, but he's legit. We got to do the story and figure out why he's wearing number 80 because that's gonna drive me insane. I just need to figure out why. It could have a cool story behind it. I hope it does. But he's a hell of a player, man, and they can go as far as he can take them.
Maybe they like don't let underclassmen choose their numbers. Maybe that's it. That's the only thing I can think of.
But I just want an explanation. That's all. Like it can be simple. I just want an explanation.
Yeah. So McQuaid's looked really good so far. At number 3, that's where the decisions really start to come in, and we took a lot of time trying to figure out where we want to go with that. And we're going to go with East at number 3 in the big schools rankings here in Section 5. They're 4-0 on the season. Their first 3 wins, you know, all pretty convincingly. You know, they crushed Brockport, they crushed Irondequoit, they crushed Wilson. In fact, in all 3 of those games, they score more than 30 points. They don't give up more than 10. So start off strong. But then last week, they beat Canandaigua, you know, a team that hasn't lost a game to a Section 5 opponent since the start of the 2019 season. The amount of number of wins that is, you know, they had some forfeits, things like that. You know, we're not going to put a number on it, but it's been a long time since Canandaigua, you know, lost to a Section 5 team. And I was at that game from about the, you know, midway to the end of the second quarter on. And that game was just a dogfight. You know, East jumped out to a 20-0 lead. Canandaigua stormed back to take the lead at 21-20. And then it kind of just held there for a while. Canandaigua had some drives. East came up with the big turnovers in the end. They had an interception. They had a fumble at the goal line, a beautiful fumble to stop a scoring drive there. And then they unload. They go to their standout players. I'm going to pull up some names here shortly. But they get a big pass down the field with a penalty. It took them all the way from, I believe it was the 8 of Canandaigua to the 8, their own 8-yard line to the 8 of Canandaigua's yard line. And then they score. And honestly, more impressive than that drive there, they got the ball back with maybe like 4 or 5 minutes left because they scored their winning touchdown with like 10 minutes to go. They converted 3 4th downs on that drive to ice out the clock. It was like 4th and 1, 4th and 2, and 4th and 2, something along that lines. They went for it every single time, and they got it every single time. 2 of, if my memory serves me correctly, 2 of them were on the ground. 1 of them was through the air. So they came up big when it mattered most against Canandaigua. So I think we got to give them their number 3 spot.
Yeah, the Bills need to apparently go to East about how to convert 4th downs because East clearly has the formula on how to do so. But no, they, like you said, the resume is impressive with taking down Canandaigua, and then also you just watch East play. They have dudes like they got guys who can make plays happen, and that's always a sight to see at the high school level. And also their quarterback is doing a great job of distributing the ball and putting the ball in those guys' hands and just letting them rock. So I have no issues having East at 3.
Yeah, Anthony Diaz returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. He also had another receiving touchdown. Zymir Jackson threw 2 in that game. Kelvin Shepard, another receiving touchdown. And then Jazario McDonald with the fumble punch at the goal line. Got to give him some shout outs. And then it was Shepard with the deep reception. He had 164 yards on just 5 grabs. So a lot to like from me so far. We got him at number 3. At number 4, the class of A1 so far, the Schrader Warriors at 4-0. I got to see them the tail end of their game against Brighton. That was a battle of unbeatens going into the thing. Wasn't close when I got there. Just the way the cookie crumbles because Schrader is just, blowing, they're just blowing out the tails off of people so far. Drew Pagano, a quarterback, And then Torrance Washington, a wide receiver, just getting it done for the Warriors so far. They're at number 4.
I mean, their highlights are explosive. I know we weren't able to get any last week because they took care of business on the early side, but for the first 3 weeks what we saw, I mean, they can put up points, man, and they can do it in a hurry. Their defense, shout out to their defense, holding Spencer Ford to 2. I believe shutting out Churchill Shiloh. So they can get it done on both sides of the ball, which bodes well for prolonged success into sectionals.
Yeah, it seems like it took them a little bit of time to get that offense rolling. They only scored 21 points on an albeit good Hilton defense. And then they only score 17 on Churchville Shiloh, which maybe raises a little bit of eyebrows. But, they won 17-0, so it's not like they had to score that much. But, man, these last 2 weeks, they've just been lighting up the scoreboard, the stat sheets. Pagano got our player of the week last week. And then, honestly, he could have been in contention this week if he didn't just win it. They've got Thomas this week. Always fun with the rivalry games, but they say throughout the records, we'll see how much those records are going to be thrown out because Schrader's just really darn good this year. Now going to number 5, we're going back to, now this is where it gets really interesting because we got a lot of teams in that mix, that muddle. We went with Victor at number 5 at 3-1 so far this season. Their only loss on the year is to UPrep. They played them the first game of the season. They lost 24-13. That game was close. I believe it was believe Victor was up at the half. They might have even been up heading into the fourth quarter, but they've had some other good results. They beat Pittsburgh. You were at that game. They beat Pittsburgh 27-14, which, Pittsburgh played a lot of crazy games. That was their only loss where, it wasn't something crazy at the end. So we got Victor at number 5 so far.
Yeah, Victor kind of took it to Pittsburgh in that game. Outside of the crazy bananas catch that Pittsburgh scored to make what Luke Fliss called to make the game a little more interesting. Victor was very physical. These teams are kind of carbon copies of each other to a certain extent, where they love controlling the line of scrimmage and being physical. One team has Evan Brock, the other has Sam Gotham. So we'll see who it's the battle of wills, which team folds first. But I really love what I've seen out of Victor so far and how physical they play.
Yeah, and the team you're referencing there is our number 6 team at Rush Henrietta at 3-1. They've got a big matchup coming up this week against each other. So that's one of these where they're going to square each other out. But Rush Henrietta at 3-1 so far this season. Like we talked about extensively on the show, they had that crazy game against Pittsburgh. And then so far, but other than that, they beat Fairport pretty handedly, who's, in a lower tier to them. They beat Penfield, 28-6 at a lower tier to them. And then they lost to a good St. Francis team out of the Buffalo area. So we're going to find out a lot about Rush Henrietta this week when they take on Victor. But right now we got Rush Henrietta at number 6.
And then the back half of their schedule, as we talked about ad nauseum, it gets brutal, and we'll see what they're made of. But as long as you can, play physical football up front, you're always going to have a chance in this game.
Yeah, and then interesting to note in that Penfield game, Evan Brock did not seem to make any sort of appearance in any stat books that we saw. He didn't score any touchdowns, didn't really do much work. So I haven't heard or seen anything about Evan Brock, what's going on there. Maybe he'll be out for Victor. Maybe he'll be not in the lineup. We'll see about that. Number 7, it is the Canandaigua Braves. A team that has only lost one Section 5 game since 2019, but they find themselves all the way down at number 7 because, Canandaigua, so far this season, it's been a grind for them so far. They've had to work for their wins much more. They're a very young team so far this year. They played Arcadia close in week 1. They went right down to the wire with Athena in week 3. Right now with Canandaigua, as I accidentally click on an ad on our app, so I lost the name. They got Taishi Crockton, who is just ridiculous out there for Canandaigua. And then other than that, they're kind of trying to figure out what else they got there.
I remember in college when I first got there, when they would refer to guys who you think are really good, and you just literally put GUY under all of them, just a guy. Taishi Crockton's one of those. When I saw him against Athena, I believe, I'm like, yo, this kid can flop. He can make a guy fall, take it to the crib, and then obviously you get back to the station and he ended up having the game winning play, I guess you can say. He didn't score, but set them up for the game winning score. But he's a dude for real, and it's very exciting to see him, and hopefully I get to catch him again before the season ends.
Yeah, and I think the best way to epitomize kind of this issue, both good and bad, that we're talking about, there was a running play in the second half of that Canandaigua East game where some dude out of the backfield broke out a really nice run. I'm like, okay, they got a running back too. It was also Tashi Crockton. So, they've got a great coaching staff. Talked to them earlier this year. They're still, they replaced, probably 10 skill position guys just about last year. So they're still figuring things out. Their schedule is going to ease up a little bit to help them figure those things out. Coming up in the near weeks, they've got Brockport, they've got Eastridge, they've got Irondequoit, and then they're going to get a nice test against Hilton to end out the season in week 8, which will gear them back up for the playoffs. But Canandaigua at number 7. And number 8 right now, we've got Aquinas. This is a team that has been in all of their games so far this year. Other than, a blowout against Edison, they have not won any of those games. They're 1-3 so far this year. So, we have them a bunch above some teams with winning records, above some Class A teams with 3-1. But, we got to be realistic and say that Aquinas, this will probably be the lowest we see them in the rankings this season.
Yeah, 100%. And to add some clarity to their record, week 1 against McQuaid, always tough, going against your rival, one of your, the game you look forward to most in week 1. That's tough. But they were up on McQuaid that entire game. McQuaid just ended up taking it at the end. Then I was at the Canisius game for the first, I would say 15 minutes or so. Canisius, they scored twice, and one of the touchdowns was a botched extra point that the holders ran in for a touchdown. So, like, that's goes to show you the type of bluff that's going against them. They played UPrep close, like you said, but they have some guys, man. I got full faith that they'll turn things around when their schedule lightens up a little bit. And I don't think any team that sees Aquinas on their schedule is like, oh, that 1-3 record means they're terrible.
Yeah, and Canisius currently in the state rankings is at number 20, which is above every single other team in Section 5 other than UPrep right now. You got McQuaid at 21. So 3 really quality losses for Aquinas. They'd be doing really good in the SEC right now with all those quality losses. At number 9, another team that's built up a lot of quality losses, the Pittsburgh Panthers right now. As we mentioned, they lost to RH in that crazy game. They got sort of kind of beaten a little handedly to Victor, and then they had a big comeback against McQuaid last week. They were down early. I think it was 20-0, 21-0. Pittsburgh came all the way back. They finally were able to unlock Jackson Green. And yeah, Pittsburgh, they got a lot of talent. They just haven't right now put up the win so far.
Jackson Green, GUI. And one of the best. I've been here 2 years. He's him.
Did you see that? Did you see that he committed, by the way?
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Green, man. Hey man, shout out to going to Princeton, the Tigers, man. I tried to, make things shake, and I wanted, you rock with Q's, but you brushed me off, man. No, it's cool though. But no, shout out to going to an Ivy League school, man. You don't need Syracuse anyway. You're gonna be bigger than all of us when it comes to the academic side too. So he's a dude though, man. Like, y'all gotta whoever's at home watching, y'all gotta check a Pittsburgh game because he's one of those ones for real. Like, he can really. He's a threat. I've seen a lot of football. I've never seen the type of double team that Victor deployed against Pittsburgh to stop Jackson Green. I've just never seen that.
Yeah, I think it was literally 250 yards in that game against McQuaid. I think that's not an exaggeration there. Yeah, Jackson Green, he is that dude committing to Princeton. Shout out to the Green siblings. You got Lexi Green over at Cornell. You got Jackson Green over at Princeton. They'd be hitting the books too over there in the Green household.
Yeah, I think they're smart. I think it's safe to say that.
A little bit. And then at number 10 in our rankings, rounding out this spot, we actually had a lot of debate about. We're going to go with Spencerport at 3-1. We strongly considered Hilton for that final spot, but both of these teams have 1 loss on the season. They're both to Schrader. Spencerport lost, Mesh in the first play of the game, Cameron Mesh. Hilton just lost 21-14. So that's our reasoning is the fact that Spencerport has a better excuse for why they lost to Schrader, even though it was much more lopsided. But these are also 2 teams that are going to face each other against this week. So they're going to figure this out really quickly.
Yeah, sure. Hilton's upset. Use it as a bullet to vote for him, man. It's all good. No, but when you lose the heart and soul of your team on the first play of the game, it's really deflating. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. 33 points. I don't know, but I do know that when you lose that guy, it's definitely it weighs on your team.
Both on offense and defense, because he plays both sides. So yeah, Spencer Port, just based off of their resume in the past, and Hilton so far this season, they're obviously going to get Spencer Port so far this season. But their wins this year against Thomas, Churchville Chila, and Olympia Odyssey, nothing too noticeable there. So they'll be receiving votes at this point until maybe they go out and prove it this weekend.
Yeah, for surely. And I love the big school division. I feel like it was a little difficult at times, especially once you get past, to figure it out. But I like our list. I'm rocking with it. And, whoever got something to say about it, like you said, my DMs are now open. They're open now. My email, all of that, and I'll be glad to hear any suggestions.
Yeah. So now we're gonna go over to the small school rankings.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. Putting this list together, pound for pound, if we're gonna do the pound for pound thing, take a little boxing analogy here, right? HFL is our number one team. I think they're pound for pound best team in Section 5. I mean, in all three phases of the game, special teams, it's rare that you can get a team that can pass in high school football, and they can do it really, really well. And they also can run it, so they're not one-dimensional. And then obviously on the defensive side of the ball, they can create some takeaways. The Cougars, I've seen 4 games this year, and they'll have some opportunities to further strengthen their case, or at least my case, as the pound for pound best team in Section 5 coming up here soon. But they are legit.
Yeah, Matt Meacham at the quarterback position, just slinging it around. And what impressed me the most, and I guess I could look at the huddle film, but I haven't done it yet. 2 of those first half touchdowns, these dudes are just wide open playing against Geneva. I don't know how they're drawing these things up. I don't know what's happening there, but he was finding guys wide open. So that's just a good sign of an offense there. Yeah, Class B, like you said, pound for pound. I think at this point, certainly, if we had to, attach our horses to a certain team to go to go on a deep state tournament run. Right now, it's HFL 4 weeks into the season. UPrep might have a little. Well, there's some other teams which we're gonna get to real soon as well. But right now, HFL, yeah, they're looking pretty darn good.
Yeah, really darn good. Another team that's looked really darn good is our number 2 squad, staying in Class B, the Batavia Blue Devils. Week 1, we were kind of unsure of what type of team they were. They didn't pull away from Wayne until late in that fourth quarter, but they've rattled off some impressive wins, especially that win against Monroe in week 3, where they took it to them, beating them 28-6 on that Thursday evening. Batavia, once again, after their, I believe, sectional run last year, is back for another year of showing that their Blue Devils are legit, and they'll match up with the number 1 team coming up here shortly.
Yeah, no way we could drop Batavia down further than this. Defending sectional champs 4-0 on the season, and that Monroe game. We couldn't get out there just because it's all the way in Batavia on a Thursday night, but that was a game we really had our eyes on, and 28-6 is quite a notable result for that matchup. Javin McFarland's is starting to come into his own at the quarterback position, and they're looking good so far at 4-0. They've got Palmac up next week. They've got Dansville, Waco, and then the big clash with HFL. So that'll be certainly our game of the week for the week of October 14th.
Following it up, OAE, Oakville, Alabama, Elba. Look, I know Class D folks. What are they doing this? Just say out these scores for you real quick. I don't care who they playing. I don't care who it's up against. Week 1, 76-6. Week 2, 70-6. Week 3 against an Avon squad who was state ranked, 42-14. How about Leroy? Top 10 matchup in Class C, right?
Class C,
38-6. What else do I need to say? You got it from here.
Yeah, that was a game that we were really excited to see how it would shake out. Leroy versus OAE, and they just took it to him. Noah Courier and Bodie Hyde. Maybe, the best 1-2 punch, certainly up there in Section 5. There's a lot of strong players in there. But, last week in that game against Leroy, Courier had 16 carries for 137 yards and a touchdown. Bodie Hyde with 153 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Those are the max prep stats I'm pulling up right now. But, yeah, OAE. And that's even the thing. Like, some of these other schools, like Avon's, they're not bad. They're very quality. They've been very good. Canisteo, I saw him week 1, maybe against a lesser opponent, but I liked some of the guys they had. They beat him 70-6. So yeah, OAE by far deserving of this number 3 ranking we're giving them.
And so further that Geneseo point, someone walked up to me at a soccer game, was like, "Yo, have you seen the Geneseo quarterback?" I'm like, no, AJ told me about him. He goes, "Yo, he's a dude." So for the fact that OAE did that to that team, it shows that that's a very impressive win. At number 4 as a team is our first team with an L on the record, 2 of them actually. The Jewel of the City, Monroe. 2-2 thus far this year, although one of them is by forfeit. I saw the game with my own 2 eyes. That game was not close to a L. I'll just say that and be polite. But Monroe, they have some guys on both sides of the ball who can create some plays. Styles McKenzie Baker is one of them. Already, I believe, a sophomore with a couple of Division I offers. He's very exciting to watch. I believe AJ saw him take a punt back to the crib a couple of weeks ago. And it's not just him. It's some other guys. The quarterback is legit and hit some deep balls. This is a team where I believe they did suffer the L to Batavia. We weren't there, but I mean, a win's a win, especially by 3 scores. But this is a team where I believe they have the horses to compete with just about anybody below them, for sure.
I mean, and I saw them last week against Dansville Waco. They blew them out 72-0. They had like 3 fumble returns for touchdowns, which is crazy. But Kai Moses is the quarterback there. He threw 5 touchdowns on 11 completions, 11 for 16. So five of those for touchdowns. Messiah Hampton, he had 7 catches for 145 and 3 touchdowns for Mr. Hampton there. Yeah, and like you said, they did suffer that loss to Batavia, but they've just looked really talented so far. They've got Livonia next week, this upcoming weekend, and then they get HFL, which is, you want to prove, that you're legit, do something to HFL. So Monroe's been looking good so far this season.
Yeah, very much so. And then next, we're going to go down to Class C, the top team in Class C, Penn Yan Dundee Scottish Mustangs. That was a name that I'm not going to lie, when I read that on air, I was like, I've never heard of this one, but it's unique, so I'll rock with it for sure.
This is the best nickname in Section 5 because Penn Yan is the Mustangs, Dundee are the Scotsmen. So instead of like them going under one, coming up with the, whatever, they use their brain cells and they became the Scottish Mustangs. So this is why that's my favorite nickname in Section 5.
You know what? I'll rock with that. I've changed my opinion. I didn't have an issue with it. I just had never heard of it, So you know what? I like the cleverness. A lot of these schools, like you said, like Pittsburgh, they're just the Panthers in football. I'm like, whatever. But yeah, I was impressed with what I saw them against Mid Lakes this week. They took down a Mid Lakes team pretty convincingly, 48-7. Defeated Lions, I believe 31-24 week 1. Only 3 games thus far this year, but they won them all. They to be a Class C team, they can pitch the ball around the yard a lot, which once again, in high school football, if you can have some semblance of a passing game, good luck, because we all played in high school, played sports in high school, and just the attention to detail at that level isn't, as high, especially on the back end, and they make you pay. So I was very impressed with what I saw with them this past week against Mid Lakes, and they got my eye on them, especially because of the nickname. Now I'm hit on the origins behind the nickname, right? So they're very deserving of that 5 spot in my eyes.
Yeah, and they've got Letchworth Warsaw Perry tomorrow on Friday. So they're going to find out real quick again. They're going to get a nice test here against another undefeated team where, the Scottish Mustangs are going to prove if they're legit or not next week.
And then on to number 6, we got the Leroy Owakin Knights. I guess we're sticking with the different nicknames. Owakin Knights. I don't know what that is. AJ probably does. I don't. But I will say though, I haven't seen Leroy this year, although they always show love every time we pull up. Either of us. Like, I know the AD coaches, they always show love when Channel 8 pull up. So big shout out to the Owakin Knights. They're 2-1 this far on the season, and they did suffer that big loss to OAE a week ago, but I think that's more about OAE being really darn good than anything else.
Yeah, and right now the big reason why we're giving this spot to Leroy is because, and we're going to do a little transitive property in the end of this rankings. Leroy got a nice win over Attica. Attica beat East Rochester Cananda earlier this year, and East Rochester Cananda made it all the way to state semifinals last year. So that's where the kind of the theory behind this is that Leroy, I think a lot of teams would lose badly to OAE. Leroy was just the one that was in their way this week, but still at 2-1, we got to give our love to Leroy there.
And then going on to number 7, we're gonna go with Geneva. What is Geneva's nickname, by the way?
The Panthers, Geneva Panthers.
Okay. So I guess we're going back to the boring stuff. All right, boo. Going with Geneva. The reason why I was okay with this ranking is in their L to HFL, they scored the most points on any team that the Cougars placed this year. So I'm all right with putting them at number 7. They're 3-1 this far on the season. I believe you saw Geneva play this
against HFL, yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen some teams going against HFL and felt as if I don't know if this is the best showing, but I believe you said it was
close in the first quarter. HFL scored less than 2 minutes in, and then it kind of stayed at 7-0 for the rest of the first quarter. They were forcing turnovers. They were keeping it close. They've got that defense that we talked about going into that matchup where they came in allowing an average of 9 points per game. So, a 3-team sample size against maybe not the strongest competition in the world, but still a good defense there for Geneva. Quadair Lawson had a really nice run to give the Panthers their biggest highlight of the game. And, they've got Wayne coming up next week, which is another, measuring stick middling team, like, try and prove who's who type of thing. But yeah, Geneva, while they didn't, keep it super close on the scoreboard, I did like some things that I saw against HFL.
And another team that's sitting at 500 at number 8, we have Attica. They did lose their last game to Bishop Timon and also suffered a defeat to Leroy as well. But they did take down the defending sectional champs in ER Gananda. I believe that holds some weight in its own right. ER Gananda may not be the same team it has from last year, but they still got Manny Sepulveda, who is really good. All right, y'all. So I'm perfectly fine with having them at the 8 spot.
Yeah, and we've got Attica at 8. We've got East Rochester Gananda. East Rochester Gananda at 9. And yeah, these clusters kind of 6 through 9. We had a lot of time, trying to figure out who's who, things like that. We went with Attica at the 8 spot, East Rochester Gananda at 9. Those could, that game went right down to the wire. Attica beat them 40-32. So very similar teams at the 8 and 9 spot, but you get the win, you get to be a little bit higher in our rankings. So yeah, that's where we got Attica and ERG.
And to wrap it all up, we doing an 8-man ball club for y'all. Canisteo Greenwood. They're gonna take on another team who's undefeated in a few weeks in Volleyball Richburg, who I did see week 1 against Red Jacket. But Canisteo, the number 1 team in the state. I feel like we got to do it. We would be remiss if we didn't put the number 1 team in the state as the best 8-man team in our small school division.
Yeah, none of us have seen Canisteo Greenwood so far, but I guess the people who have them number 1 in the state so far. So Canisteo Greenwood's done some really good things so far. As I quickly pull up their schedule, they're 4-0 on the season, and this is this has been the Red Jacket division so far, and it is not this year. So I think this 8-man playoffs is gonna be kind of interesting. They crushed Minders, they beat Pembroke 28-14, they blew out Red Jacket, and then they blew out Wellsville. So that's a lot of times that I said blew out when describing the way that game went down. So got to give him some love at the number 10 spot.
Yeah, I think we had some fun doing this. It was definitely interesting, to actually, we talk about it in the newsroom or back in the office a couple times about, who's who and where's where. But it's always fun to actually write it down on paper and list it out and see, all right, how far is team X from team Y? So I definitely had fun doing this exercise.
Exactly. We're going to update these every single week. We're not going to go through it in detail as we did today, obviously, but we're going to update these rankings every single week, attach them to the high school huddle. Maybe just go over the bullet points there of kind of, who we got going up, who we got coming down. And then speaking of rankings, we have our first state volleyball rankings coming out this week. I believe it's the first state rankings. If not, it's the first state rankings that I've seen. So in my eyes, they're the first state rankings. But I actually do believe they are the first state rankings. But a lot of teams right at the top. None, there's nowhere else to start but a Class AA. We've got Penfield at number 1. We've got Fairport at number 2. I was ready to talk about, we talked before about Penfield is the new top dog, yada, yada, this, yada, yada, that. Fairport beat them in the Victor tournament just over a week and a half ago. Penfield came back and responded by beating them in 4 in a regular season, best of 5 match. So Penfield and Fairport might have to be the new Penfield and Victor for this year.
Sheesh, no, that's spicy right there. Okay, I'm gonna have to keep my eye on that because last year it was, for the most part, we had an idea that Victor was gonna run away with it, and then Penfield kind of shocked us at the end, like, oh, we ain't too far behind. All right, then I'm gonna definitely keep my eye on that for sectionals and get my keen eye on that one, my keen volleyball skillful eye on that. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, and so far in for Fairport so far, just highlighting some stats. Lana Wood, their setter, getting it done. Kira Kornman and Megan Clifford on the outside. And then looking through the Democratic Chronicle, the scores there. They played St. Mary's, which is a really strong team out of the Buffalo area. My sister, playing for Eden, had a lot of great battles with St. Mary's. They were down 18-9 in the third set of their matchup against each other, and they stormed back from down 18-9 to win 29-27. So I think that was just another way I had to highlight Fairport there. There, we do have another team in the top 5 in the class of AA. We've got Schrader in the 5 spot, which some people in the newsroom are going to be very happy to hear that they're top 5 there.
No way. I don't have no relation to Schrader. Do you?
I don't. So I guess you guys are going to have to, process of elimination. Thad's daughter goes to Schrader. So spoiler alert there. And then going down to Class A, we've got Mercy at the number 4 spot, which, to be honest, took me by surprise just because I thought they were a Class AA team. They're Class AA in other sports, they're Class AA in basketball. They have won the Class AA girls volleyball state championship back in 2012. So I do not know exactly the story of why they are now in Class A. They're in fact in A2. So I don't know about that, but they are at number 4 in the state. And then right behind them, Sutherland and Irondequoit at 5 and 6, both teams that have had strong sectional success in the past. Irondequoit also undefeated. So we got some teams in Class A here.
Yeah, I haven't been able to catch a ton of girls volleyball this year just based off the Bills want to be on prime time all the time, so our schedule never as consistent as it needs to be. But going forward, I'll have, like I said, my keen volleyball eye more on some of these divisions and definitely check out some more teams that need the love they deserve.
And then in B, C, and D, no team in Section 5 is ranked so far. We've got Wayne in Class B getting an honorable mention. And then we got the girls from Pavilion down in Class D. Carl, very familiar with the Pavilion girls. They're honorable mention in Class D right now.
Yeah, Pavilion, cool. But I'm going to say shout out to the team that's ranked 2nd in the state, Class C. AJ going to skip it because he's going to act like he didn't care. But I'm going to say it. Eden, they ranked 2nd in the state. Shout out to the mighty Eden Raiders.
The mighty Eden Raiders, as they're known on this podcast. Yeah, I mean, Portville is number 1. I believe they've lost to Portville in the crossover game. It might be the last 4 years. So I know it has been discussed in the Feldman household how Eden just, their longtime coach, Stephen Pierce, who coached my sister back in the day, he retired maybe like 3, 4, 5 years ago. They've been like number 2 in the state and they hadn't made it to the state tournament like every single year. So it's a tough break for the mighty Eden Raiders, but maybe, just maybe, this is their year to get past Portville. But that'll do it for our girls volleyball rankings. We're going to quickly talk about our games of the week because I think we already talked about both of them coming up. I've got Spencerport and Hilton. This is going to be a real big test as to, like we alluded to in the standings or in our rankings, who is that second dog in Class A2. It'll be really interesting to see if Cameron Mesh can play. I think that'll have a big impact on this game, of course. But either way, Hilton and Spencerport, 2 teams that like to play good defense. They like to run the ball. They like to, you talk about Deflategate. They're not trying to deflate the football to, make it easier to throw. They're trying to deflate the football so they can run that thing as much as physically possible.
Oh, yeah. Whoever loves the ground and pound, type of ball, that's your game to watch right there. I'm talking to Spencerport's coach earlier in the season, before the season actually. He lives on it, and watching Hilton play, I'm sure they are the same exact way. So make sure that y'all get y'all popcorn ready for some pads popping with the Rangers taking on the Cadets this weekend.
Yeah, and your game of the week is going to have maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say excitement because we want to call it running the football, not excitement. But we're going to say excitement. It's probably going to have a little bit more excitement.
Fireworks. We'll say fireworks.
Let's say fireworks.
Fireworks. usually 1-3 teams aren't going to be your games of the week, but I think this game is matchup is definitely deserving of it. With Pittsburgh taking on Aquinas, both teams are 1-3, haven't got off to the start that they were hoping, but a win gets you back on the right trajectory going forward. I guess I don't want to say salvage your season because everyone makes the playoffs, but you want to win and you want to get some type of rhythm and consistency. Both teams are dying for a win. That game will be 7 p.m. at Pittsburgh on Friday night. That'll sure to be a fun one for both sides.
Yeah, because we're getting into, the second half of the schedule. After this week, there's only 3 games left. And at a certain point, you can't be satisfied with these close losses. We can say on paper, they're playing these tough games, things like that. One of these teams is somehow going to be 1-4 after this week. And they're going to be a really strong 1-4. Don't get me wrong, but they're still going to be 1-4.
Oh, 100%. Like, I understand, like, your schedule, you play who's in front of you, and that's that. But you are what your record says you are. You're a 1-4 ball club. And unfortunately, I know we've seen the team, so we're not going to think of them in that 1-4, like, bad aura. But as a player or a coach or anyone who's associated with the program, you want to start racking up some wins because ultimately that's what you're out there for.
Especially, there's still a lot of time to figure out how these rankings, the sectional rankings go. But, it's going to be tough to, you start out at 1-4. You're playing a lot of really, you're going to have to play 2 tough teams on the road just to get to that sectional championship game. If you win this game, I haven't done the math yet, but there's still a chance you can crawl into that 4th spot and get that first round playoff game at home where, you've got 4 teams right now at 3-1 or better. But, the way the schedule shakes out, Aquinas or Pittsburgh could certainly jump up to that 4th spot. So, but if you lose this week, watch out. Yeah, so we're getting out of here on the High School Huddle podcast, an extended episode for you. We got the Zoom that we recorded before, still converting on my computer, so we got a lot of information for you this week. We'll be back at it next week with our revised rankings. We'll start taking a little closer look at some of the soccer teams, things like that. We don't want to leave them out in full, but we just had a lot to get to on the football side of things. So for Carl Jones, I'm AJ Feldman. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching the High School Huddle podcast. Enjoy the start of October football. We'll see you next week.